name is Dave Griffith. Welcome to Analysis in Action in Real Time. We're going to talk about moving beyond clipboards and whiteboards. If you guys don't know me, my background is as a practitioner in this space with Industry 4.0 and digital transformation. I also co-host a show called Manufacturing Hub. Today, I am super excited because I'm surrounded by three great people. We've got Mark, who is the VP of Customer Success at Litmus. We've got Regia, who is the Group IT and Industry 4.0 lead at Porcelain. And we've got Tor, who is the CEO and founder of Clarify. We are super excited to go ahead and have a conversation with all of these things. And what I'd like to do is I like to jump into applications. Going and talking about applications of actually making these transitions are some of my most interesting conversations that I get to have. So I'd like to go ahead and ask the fellow panelists if you guys can share an example of how you've helped a manufacturer shift away from the paper into some sort of digital solutions and what benefits you've seen from there. Tor, I'd like to go ahead and throw it over to you, please.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a great question. And we also like discussing real world applications, and that's where the data actually does more. And where we see, and where our main focus is how can we make data actionable and useful for the domain experts actually out in the field, at the factory floor, the people who know the process best and who are there every day. So where we see our main applications is in two main categories, and it's either when something goes wrong, when something bad happens, and you have to do root cause analysis, and you have to do problem solving and troubleshooting, and having data available to actually do that is crucial to be able to mitigate and to fix it and to move forward. One example of that is one of our customers in the food production segment had a big quality issue costing them millions of dollars. And as their CTO said to us, typically that would go into the category unexplainable. But they, luckily in this case, they've invested in sensors, they've invested in technical infrastructure at the edge. So they actually had the data contextualized and ready to use. And with Clarify on top, they were able to easily find the data, form hypothesis, and actually explore the data in a way to find the root cause, and then be able to make a strategy to prevent that from happening again. So really what we see as the main contribution we can provide is in problem solving and troubleshooting, and also in day-to-day process optimization and all of this. Just how can you get a little bit more out of your equipment every day? Just small gains. How can you use data to really unleash more production potential in your day-to-day operations?
Absolutely. No, I think that those are really good examples, and it's always good to have and work with clients who are willing to go invest the money in the sensors, because just going and having data on an iPad on something digital, it is not just you get to go ahead and snap your fingers and then it is there, and then hopefully we can make decisions based upon that. It is a lot of work to go ahead and collect it and get to that point of root cause analysis and problem solving. Regia, I know that you have an example or a couple of examples that you can go ahead and talk about. I would love to get your take on one or a couple of these applications as well, please.
Okay, so thanks, Dave. So effectively, I have implemented some example in my company. The idea was not to digitalize anything, but only the things that can bring value for the company. Because from the end user point of view, they would like to digitalize anything, even if it's not bring any value, but just to have some great dashboard or something. So we work closely between IT and OT in order to make sure that the information we digitalize is something that we are using on a daily basis, that we can save time on it. We can save time for the operator to make them focus on their core activity. So that is one. Also, as Tor said before, that it's important as well to have some historical data to make faster the analysis, the root cause analysis, for example. So we identified some useful use case related to that point, and then we implement them. So with the help of our data hub based on Litmus Edge, for example, we are able to automate some use cases. So I can share maybe my screen to show you some example of them. So here, for example, you can have here an example of hour by hour trends, for example. So for a given site, for a given equipment, for a given shift, you can have the targets and also the actual information. Previously, we had this on a whiteboard, and the operator have to write manually on the whiteboard the quantity hour by hour. Now we connect the equipment and we collect automatically the information. And what is very interesting here is that for any plant, for example, I can go in real time to one of our plants in the group and I can have it. So we just not digitalize the information, but we think global. So any use case we put in place is available for any plant of the group. So we have more than 8 plants in the world, and we have this on the same way. This one is another topics as well. So basically, when we have an equipment that produce some products, and the idea is that the product can be good or scrap, but in real time, before we don't know what are the main parameters who generate this bad part. So automatically now, in real time as well, we can have the Pareto of the main parameters that are the main cause of the bad part, and we can have also the evolution of each of them. So it's available as well for any plants and for each plant, for any equipment as well. So it saves us a lot of time. Another thing here is that, as you know, for each shift, for example, in the production, we can have some startup checklist or first level maintenance or something like that. So all of this before we should do there by the paper as well, and the next day someone put it in the Excel sheet or something. And now what we did is that we have 2 types. So this one is, for example, we collect information automatically. And the second option we put in place is that we have a tablet in the shop floor, and the operator can use it to make some digital audit or digital routine for the first level maintenance, or also for the startup checklist. So those are part of the use case we put in place, and with this system we save time, we focus our workforces to their main core action, let's say, and yes, bring value, eliminate or non-value added time.
No, I think that's a fantastic example, and I'm sure everyone here has got has a number of comments and kind of thoughts about that. But Regia, I would like to go ask you kind of one question on the great example you shared. So as you guys were going through the process of creating these dashboards and going off of paper and being able to collect data in real time, was there a shift in mindset? Was there a shift in action from the facilities that you work with to be able to say, hey, I can see how we're doing immediately. I can go correct some of maybe potential issues that we're having?
Yes, exactly. So in the beginning, it was not easy because when we put in place in the first time our data hub system, the end user did not know what these tools can bring to them on their daily basis. So in the beginning, what we did is that we are working in the push mode. So from my team, we identified some quick win. We developed it, put it in place, provided some, let's say, some visible use case, and then this bring trick some idea to the local team. And so that is one shift inside on the mindset. and identified as well some let's say some digital native leaders in the shop floor. We work with them in order to make smoothly the change management. And once you have one plant onboarded, so there is something like the competition between different plants, and then it's bring, let's say, some great movements across the plant. And once we implemented 1.5 years back some use cases, so now we don't need to ask them to share use case. So I have a lot of backlog now for to implement them. And because we have too much backlog now, what we put in place as well is that for each use case, we ask, okay, if we don't do this, what will happen? If you did this, what will be the value added for them? So the idea is to not just creating some dashboard to collect data. If it does not bring value to the business, we do not implement this. And the second point is one of the key points that my industrial director take account, is that if we don't master the right things, for example, the QRQC, for example, it's not really well implemented everywhere. So we need to make some lean in our daily management. And once it's lean, then we can digitize this. So we have a lot of use cases ongoing yet, but what I can say is that the shift was done. The shift was done. All plant managers are onboarded, and they ask to go further. And the next step for us is, let's say, because we now have more than 3 years data, because we are able to integrate previous data, the old data in the system, thanks to the data hub as well. So the next step is to make some analytics, and it will let us to step up again.
No, fantastic. I think that's a very exciting application. A couple of technical points for anyone wondering, and I know because we talked about this, it is they're running Litmus Edge, and then it is Grafana that Regia was using to go ahead and visualize all of that data. I will also say that if you guys are watching and have questions live and in flow, please feel free to go ahead and ask those questions. We're going to do our very best to get to them after this conversation. I do want to go over to Mark. Mark, I know that you've seen lots of these applications. I guess to you, I'd love to know if you would like to share an example, or perhaps you've got a couple of comments or thoughts upon the examples that Tor or Regia have already shared.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I think the example that Regia shared is really, really powerful. It touches a couple different things. One, they're straightforward. I won't say they're easy, but they brought value to the plant right away. But they didn't disrupt the daily operations of the plant per se. It made the operator's life easier. And we see that a lot with the downtime type of applications, where they have to write something on a clipboard. And now either they can choose from a menu on a digital tablet, or better yet, they've coded that fault code into the machine. So it's automatically picked up, and everybody gets the data real time without having to go first to a clipboard, then to Excel, then to a larger database, and then make a report. So that alone is a powerful way to start with going from clipboard to digital. Finding that niche that says, I'm going to come in, I'm going to help your job, but I'm not going to make it painful to help your job. The other one that we see a lot is with maintenance, specifically with calendar-based maintenance versus runtime maintenance. So with calendar-based maintenance, people look at a calendar, they've got whatever system up, and they got next week on Tuesday, I'm going to shut down the machine. With runtime, they track the hours, and based on the number of hours that machine runs, they're flagged in advance. Hey, this is coming. So they do less work, which makes most people happy, and it's optimized, so they're not getting flack from the production managers, the plant managers, like, why are you shutting that machine down at the wrong time? And they're reducing the risk of going too far, because they don't want to shut the machine down on a Tuesday, and they're trying to push it to a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, when it's not going to impact, right? So it's, again, those use cases that enable the end user through a digitization effort. Those are the ones that we see that are really, really powerful.
Absolutely. No, I think that that is fantastic. Thank you for that, Mark. Tor, I'd like to come back to you, and I guess this is kind of a two-parter. I know we're talking about this great example, so if you've got comments on these examples, maybe to continue what you were talking about, I would love that. But then kind of after that, I'd love to talk about, I think the question is where to start, right? I think the example you had, I think the example Regia has, that is what I like to call future state, right? Like that is where we can hope most facilities can be in, I don't know, 2 to 5 years, but that is not to the point of, hey, I'm running everything on paper. So I guess the question after the example is where do you recommend manufacturers start this process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll jump right to that. And that's something we see that a lot of our customers, we work with different verticals, and we see a lot of people struggling with where to start. And it's so overwhelming, both at the technical stage, but also at like which use cases do you prioritize and where to start in every direction. So what we typically do with our customers is talk about strategically what's important for your business, what are you trying to achieve. We see that companies that produce the same things can have very varying strategic prioritizations. Someone goes for volume production, someone goes for quality. So it's different, although they might seem the same from the outside. So we typically start with the high level questions. What do you want to be best at? And then reverse engineer down to where's the smallest and fastest path to success that can give you some validation and some proof that it actually is possible to do. And it can be a use case that you can engage your team and your people around you to further grow those efforts. So it's combining the big picture with the small details and what's actually possible to do. So that's a tough combination to do, but when it succeeds, it's really, really powerful.
Absolutely. So I would agree with that. And I guess I'm going to ask a bit of a probing question to that, Tor. Have you, I guess, are there a couple of general areas where you have helped manufacturers find success? Are there a couple of starting points that you have found over and over are, as I kind of say, low-hanging fruit for many groups to start looking at?
Yeah, so for us, it's as I mentioned initially, it's troubleshooting and maintenance, and when things go wrong, where do you start? So just having easy access to data so you can start becoming a data detective. Data doesn't do more by itself, unfortunately, yet at least. So giving people the tools to start probing and starting asking the probing themselves is really what we aim to do. And that's where we see the biggest value quickly, because that's something that hasn't been possible for many of our customers, at least. And the other one is what's the value drivers of your production every day, and how can you work continuously based on live data, and how can you bring your team together around that data to make small incremental improvements every day. And that it was mentioned before that it's a big technical shift to go from hindsight to real time. But what we see as a big challenge now is the organizational and the human shift. If you're used to working in a specific way with clipboards and notebooks and having one quarterly meeting where you're supposed to improve your production, going from that to being data driven hour by hour or shift by shift, that's a big change in how you work. And that's something I think more industrial companies should focus more on, is what is the future of work, both at the technical and data from a data perspective, but also how do you actually work and how do you operationalize and take action based on your real-time data.
Absolutely. I love that. I thought you made two great points. One, becoming a data detective. We could just kind of completely rename the webinar Becoming a Data Detective. Paul and Karen are going to kill me, but I love that. And two, I thought you made a really good point on troubleshooting. I don't think I've ever worked with a facility who said, no, we're very good at troubleshooting. We do not need to get better at troubleshooting or anything like that. So I think both of those are really good points. Mark, I'd like to come back to you with your role as, customer success at Litmus, and with your vast experience before. When you're going and having conversations with end users, when they say, hey Mark, what data matters most, and where do you recommend we start, what are those answers? What does that conversation look like from your perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I think what data matters most is a pretty open question, right? It depends on what you're trying to do. It depends on the people you have, and the support that you have in your organization. So we've seen orgs that have a one-person band basically, and they want to start something, and they bring us in, and they want to fix or improve their particular process. So they're very, I'll call them selfish, because they want to bring us in just to do their thing. So to them, that data matters that's specific to their process. So it might be fault codes, it might be OEE, it might be alerting on machines when they're going down. We have other customers who are more big picture, and they have very specific initiatives. And I think Regia, he falls into that category 100%. So the data that mattered to him is completely different than the one-man show. So it depends on the use case, it depends on the scope. But usually what we try to advocate for is start small, start with one use case, and prove out the value, because that generates a couple things. One, it generates value right off the bat. Two, it generates enthusiasm, both on the shop floor and at the top floor. And enthusiasm usually drives budget, which can help continue the flow. So start small, find the right use case that suits your need, whether you're just on a line and you're doing your own thing and you want to kind of champion that throughout your org, or if you're a top-down approach, find the heavy hitters by asking the people at the plant what's killing you the most.
Absolutely. I think those are fantastic points. And if I just may kind of add to Mark's point, especially if you're starting small, make sure you find something that is visible to people within the organization, that has a business case, that has a return on investment. That absolutely will drive the enthusiasm from all of the people who go ahead and sign the checks. And if you get to that point, you can work with, you can start at almost any level within an organization. So I think that those are fantastic points. Thank you. Thank you on that side, Mark. Regia, I'd like to come back to you, and I want to ask a very similar question of where would you recommend starting, but I think I would like to ask a slightly different question, because you showed us all of the beautiful things that you've been working on in the last 3 years. So where did you start 3 years ago to get to this beautiful point that you are now?
So I think the best place to start is to understand the business. So to start with the problem. So what is the pain point for the company? And so this is one point. And the second major point, I think, is that it is necessary to collaborate between IT and OT. Not IT alone can do the job. Not OT alone can do the job, because there is let's say an important point to collaborate, because if the business can think that I'd like to do this, but directly the IT people should say, okay, we can do it, or yes, we can work around to find a solution. So this is one point, to find the organization, even if it's a small one, because in Puncland, for example, I have a small team, but I have a network of people in all the plant, and I'm working with the business people, and it's very important, yes, to work together. And one important thing as well that Mark mentioned is regarding that have a big picture. So always have this big picture, even if you start small, with just one use cases. Think how can you leverage it to all of your company. And that is what we did at Puncland, for example. Even if one given plant has got something, what you do is that, okay, we take this use case, we discuss with your plant that, yes, there is this idea. What do you think? Is there any usage on this? And it helps you as well to create enthusiasm. And when you take the input from the plant floor, it gives you credit as well, that yes, they listen to us, so we can help them as well to put in place something. And I think this collaboration is really key. and thinking global, not only just having something that for a given plant. And when I think thinking global is not just for the business side, it's also for the IT side as well. So what you put in place, for example, each time we develop something, we think, let's say, something that we can create a pattern or a template in order to reuse it and to simplify something later on that, yes, as I always told to all of the Ponclen people, that I don't want that my team is the bottleneck for the business. I provide the information to all the plants. We try to put in place some assets, some reusable asset, and then they can use that point. So think global, start small, and accept as well to make mistake. Because, for example, if we take our case, not 100% of what you implement is our success, but we are okay with this. And one of our points is that when we collect information from a given equipment, sometimes the data are wrong, but it's okay as well, because I have a lot of cases that, thanks to the first loop of data collection, we identify that there is a misconfiguration in the equipment, and then we make another continuous improvements to modify it. And the next step, we have as well the same equipment, but from different countries. For example, the configuration is not the same, and we continue as well to say, okay, guys, if you would like to make some analysis on those equipments and make, let's say, a reliable comparison between each plant to find, let's say, the right improvement to all the group. So we need to standardize something as well. So step by step, you improve the process, you improve the configuration of the equipment, and at the end, of course, we will improve the quality. And of course, with the fact that we will work with accurate data, normally we should reduce cost and increase productivity. So that are some tips that I can provide to the industrial company.
Absolutely. So I think all of those are really very good points. I would like to kind of go pick on a couple. I love the start small. I love the think globally. I think especially if you are a facility or a group that has multiple facilities, being able to go pilot use cases at different facilities and be able to share in and amongst the groups are really good. That is something that I wish that we as an industry could do better, as opposed for just, one practitioner's experience of this is what has worked well in the past, or one company's experience of this is what has worked well in the past. So I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for that, Rija. Tor, I'd like to come back to you.
And
Oh,
just,
sorry.
Dave, sorry. And maybe one point that helped us to go quickly as well is that we work at the beginning as a lab mode. So we work out of the production side. So with our digital lab, for example, we make some tests in our side, and that led us to let's say to experiment to see if it's suitable or not, and then we show as well our let's say prototype or demo in our digital lab to some business people, and it can accelerate as well. So in that way, we prepare some working use case out of the production, and once we implement this at the production side, it will work. Because if you start directly at the production side, and if you file too much, it will not give credit, and it will not give confidence as well from the business team. So it's important as well to have this prerequisite or pre-action before
Yes.
testing even one use case at the production side. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, I think that's really good. I love everything that you guys are doing on your lab side. And I think every conversation that we've had about that is very compelling. More people should go look at how we can go test things out before we just go push live into production. Tor, I would like to come back to you. I think you've given a bunch of really good examples. You've talked a bit about what we would call continuous improvement, getting better every day, a lot of that troubleshooting, all of the very hard things that are difficult to quantify and go ahead and teach. So I'd like to go kick off this question with you of how we're handling diagnosis and remediation of problems today is different than how we are doing historically. So from your perspective, maybe if you could tell us a little bit about how you see end users doing it historically and how you're using these digital tools to go do a better job today than we have in the past.
Yes, that's a great question. And unfortunately, historically, the option would be do nothing, as I mentioned in the beginning. For a lot of our customers, they would just file it under unexplainable and then move on until it happens again. So I think the opportunity now with all the great technologies such as Litmus and capturing data at the edge and making it available is a huge leap forward in actually being able to do any diagnosis and remediation. So just having it available is the first step in that, of course. And what we see as the next step is how can you make that data available to people who are not first and foremost analysts or data scientists, but who are domain experts. They might even not use data today in any regard. So how can you make them both interested and engaged and give them new skills, so to say, to be able to do that diagnosis and remediation? Because at the end of the day, we believe those are the people in the best position to understand the equipment, to understand the data, to enrich it with their insight and the knowledge, which in turn makes a better data set for an analyst. That's a hard word for Norwegian to say. And a data scientist that's not that close to the process. So we really believe that the key to succeeding with using that data is empowering and engaging the people closest to the process and closest to the equipment to actually start using it. And as Vija mentioned, closing the time from insight to action, and also it's when you first start using the data, you realize what is their quality, what do we actually have to work with, and that's a problem and a diagnosis problem by itself, because it's once it pops up in your dashboard and you see, oh, it's wrong, it's not the data, this is not the data I was looking for. That's when you can really start working on improving the data quality and in turn making it useful for decision making and analysis. So it's a complex topic, but and a hard work, but you just need to get started, I think.
I agree. I think getting started is good, and certainly putting the data and information in the hands of people who can use it and understand the process is extremely important. Giving it to people, giving raw data to people that don't understand the process is a good opportunity to be very frustrated and take a long time to get very little additional value out of it. The process is a very key portion of what we are doing. So I absolutely appreciate that. Mark, would like to come over to you, kind of ask you a similar question of how you're seeing people use data in understanding what a diagnosis is and doing remediation, and how it's different today than what it was before we had this data, before we had this information.
Yeah, thanks. I think the best example I can give you, and I think Jake Hall mentioned it a bit this morning in the opener, was around maintenance, and that whole tribal knowledge. I guess that's in a lot of older maintenance people's heads. So when I first started, maintenance was a lot about walking the floor and listening and looking. So you would hear a machine start to vibrate, or you would look at a machine and you could see something was wrong, and that was all based on experience, and it was handed down from generation to generation, but from worker to worker, and that knowledge or that data was in people's heads. With technology today, things like vibration sensors and such, you can collect that data. You don't have to walk the floor, but you also get a more granular, specific piece of data that will help you troubleshoot those problems, or at least predict those problems, rather than relying on somebody with years and years of experience. You can rely on data that does almost the same thing. So rather than listening or seeing a problem, the data is alerting you to a problem. So it's that shift from the person to more the knowledge of the machine. I think is the biggest change I've seen.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Having that knowledge is exceptionally important. Regia, I would like to come to you. And again, my question is going to be slightly different because you guys are to the future state. How are you seeing the diagnosis of problems and the solving of those problems? How is that different today than what it was 3 or 4 or 5 years ago before you had all of this fantastic data and information?
So the difference is that previously we lost a lot of time to analyze things with no information. Now we are able to make some analysis with some factual data. So it's really key. If I take, for example, for some equipments, now we can have some historical information about temperature, pressure, or something like that. And then it can help us to, let's say, to identify the root cause, even if it's not the exact root cause. The same thing, for example, regarding the quality. So yes, we already have the data, but we did nothing about those data. Now we have the data and we make some contextualization. So we put those data on a given context, and it's really key as well, because yes, depending the site, depending the equipment, depending the shift, so we can go, let's say, closely to the root cause thanks to those data. So yes, the advantage is that we save time, and we change as well the mindsets, because it's not easy that if you have some world workforces not familiar with the data analysis. So now, step by step, you change the mindset, and I know that in the future it will be mandatory to have workforces to be aware, manipulating data, analyzing data, and so on. So it is a good thing, and what we are seeing as well is that the mindset is changing, even if some old people are now asking data. And one of the great points I found when I go to the shop floor is that even if the operator use those information, and it's really, for me, is the very big gift for us, because yes, we develop something, we put in place something, and then they are using on a daily basis. So yeah, saving time, working on accurate data, and yeah, improving as well. So give, let's say, quality to the task for the operational team, because it's, for example, if I take a case of a quality engineer, sometimes they take 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, or 2 hours earlier the morning to take data, make some Excel sheets, and a pivot table, create graph, and yes, they're not here to to do that job. So now they are doing their job. We are not at the end of the story, but I already see the improvement comparing to what we have before.
Absolutely. No, I think that is fantastic. I think it is very exciting. Tor, I'd like to come back to you on that topic. Regia has kind of mentioned root cause analysis, and you were kind of alluding to that before, and I'm not sure there's anything that we in this industry are worse at than root cause analysis, especially lots of things that we call root cause analysis that isn't actually root cause analysis. So I guess kind of question over to you is, are you seeing people able to actually go through a root cause analysis and everything that kind of follows those exercises using the data? And is it easier to get them to go through these exercises because we have data in the kind of future state of many of these clients?
Yes, that's a great question. And yeah, we see more and more examples of people actually being able to do that. And we see that people have a hypothesis and they have ideas, and they, when something happens, they have a theory of why it happens, but they don't have the facts or the information easily available to back it up or to disclaim it, debunk it. So we have cases where customers have cut energy costs by 30%. They've increased production capacity by 20% just by being able to access data that they already have in a format they can actually use without spending days and weeks and months in Excel and pivot tables and all of that. But actually being able to use all that OT data in its full glory and resolution and variety. And then being able to prove or disprove what they believe to be true, or actually see new things, and be able to innovate on how they operate and how they do things. So it's a monumental challenge for most of our customers, but it's all about getting these small glimpses of hope, and then being able to scale that and being able to do it and being able to teach people how to do it over and over and over again. And that's both a technical challenge, but it's also who's going to do that? Which people are you in need of in your organization? Do people have the freedom in their roles to actually become data detectives, or are they bogged down by sheets and clipboards and things and never have the time to do it? So we spend a lot of time with our customers, both solving the technical problems, but also trying to push them in the direction of freeing up more time for people to actually be able to use that data. Because it doesn't matter if you've invested in great infrastructure if no one's there to make it do more.
Absolutely. I think that is a really fantastic point, is it doesn't matter if you've invested in the infrastructure if no one is there or can use that infrastructure to be successful. Last question that I'm going to ask everyone is, I want to talk about maybe one challenge and one opportunity that you see for people to use real-time data more as we're getting ready to wrap up this. But first, I do want to remind everyone watching live that we've got a Q&A section. If you guys have questions based upon kind of anything we've talked about, or you've got questions based upon anyone's background, we would love to go ahead and stick around after the session to be able to go ahead and answer those. Mark, I'd love to come to you first to talk about maybe one challenge and one opportunity that you see clients have with using real-time data, please.
Sure. I guess I'll go with the culture challenge. Data is not welcomed into every culture, I guess you could say. So that's a big challenge. So getting people to, one, believe that the data can help them, and then use the data effectively across different teams is really the challenge, because people have had data for a while, but it's been very segregated and siloed, as we all know. So once you start to split that data open and it's shared and it's telling a story, the culture also has to shift so that they listen to that story. We have one customer who overcame that challenge, and they're kind of measuring that in the reduction of fights between teams, because maintenance and process and production, they're all seeing and sharing the same data now. And so the answers to why something happened becomes a lot clearer, and they're not fighting over their opinions. They're fighting over, what is that data telling us, and having a different type of discussion, but that discussion is a lot more fruitful towards solving the problem, because it takes the personality out of the equation and it takes the data to the front of the equation to point to the right answers. So I think the culture piece, if that can be overcome, again, it's the value add that gets shown that can help create that win for companies.
Absolutely fantastic. I appreciate that. Regia, as we're running up on time, can we get one challenge or one opportunity that you see people face while using real-time data, please?
Yeah. So one challenge for me is that it's very important to make the global system sustainable. So having only, for example, centralized team for me is not the right direction. But train all of the facilities, for example, it's not an easy task as well. And I think one of the big challenges is to identify the right profiles at each plant in order to give some autonomy to each plant, in order to make sure that even if the central team is no more there, the company will continue to have this stable system. And it is one of the point that the tools choice is very important. So it should be something that easy to use in order to make sure that even if some people with a lower technical level can use it. And yeah, so it's one of the reason when we start 2 years back, we make some criteria and make some yeah, those. So our choices are based on some educated choice to find the right solution. And,
Fantastic. I appreciate that, Regia. Tor, we are running up on time, but 30 seconds. One challenge or opportunity, please.
I would say endless opportunities. Culture is the challenge, but also the opportunity, because at the end of the day, culture is your true lasting competitive advantage. And if you can make that work, both technically and humanly, that's how you will succeed and outcompete the competition.
Absolutely. I think that is fantastic, Mark. I think you absolutely killed the number one biggest issue that almost every group faces is the culture. Culture has to be right in order to succeed. Everyone, I'd like to thank you for being with Tor, Mark, Regia, and myself, Dave Griffith. This has been analysis in action in real time, moving beyond clipboards and whiteboards into some of all of the amazing other things. We've got, I think, maybe a 2 or 3 minute break at this point, and then we are going to go directly into the halftime report, which I am super excited about. Until next time, we'll see you all soon.